All right, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this wonderful Monday night, June 5th, 2023. It's about 10:35 p.m. here along the West Coast in the state of California, that is. And latest activity looks like some movement into the Southern California area. Nothing major going on there, but a little bit of movement around the Little Lake area. We did have an interesting earthquake here at the northern end here of California, right smack dab here on the Cascadia megathrust area, the subduction zone level itself. A 3.5 coming in earlier this evening, just an hour or so ago. 15 kilometers deep. That's just right up there where we expect the strain to be building. It's the only earthquake. It did come into the seismograph stations actually fairly nice. Right now things are fairly calm up there around the Petrolia area. A little bit of activity across the Cone Peak, Hawaii area. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map tonight here across the Cascadia area and see what we have. 70 epicenters, kind of slowing down here. It's possible that we're just getting to the point of where you can't really shove this plate down underneath the North American plate too much more. So strain is obviously building up here across Cascadia. Most of the movement here, as mentioned back, we could probably go, let's go through this. Let's see what we got here since about the 22nd of May up till today's date. Today, by the way, we had about 70 epicenters of tremor, little bit of a decline, but most of the movement here, folks, have been in the southern end of the Cascadia Subduction Zone, and of course, that is the area here underneath the land that is being subducted. Of course, the Juan de Fuca plate, there's many different diagrams that we can show. A very simple diagram, of course, is going to be the USGS map here. We got the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole. There's actually three separate plates that is involved here. You got the Explorer plate up north, about right here. The cutoff line, the Juan de Fuca plate, the bigger one of the three, and slash right about here. South, you got a Gorda plate, but as a whole, we'll call this a Juan de Fuca plate, and this is slowly but surely being subducted underneath the North American plate here to the east. This is the eastern edge here, and of course this plate being shoved down underneath this region and creating some volcanoes, of course, across the Cascades, and building up quite a bit of strain here across the Cascadia area. The last major earthquake was obviously a 9.0, potentially greater, back in 1700. So we got 323 years, and I don't know how many months and days and seconds, but it's been building up. And it's just a matter of time, I think, before we see that big one out here along the Cascadia. Regular intervals range anywhere from about 260 to 450 years or so. So take your pick, whether it be the lower number or the higher number. We're getting up there. Rest of the Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet. Not a whole lot going on up there into the state of Washington or Oregon. Very minimal movement south here. Looking at the map, only one earthquake, well, two earthquakes down here into the Southern California area over the last 24 hours above 2.5. So things are actually a little bit on the minimal side here across the West Coast. Continue to watch that, of course. Yellowstone, let me see what we got for Yellowstone up here. I definitely have to check that out because it's obviously a major super volcano up there in the state of Wyoming. Looks like one earthquake here in the last couple hours. See that showing up there on the graph. It did pop up here across numerous stations. I don't think USGS is going to show any. What's going on here with all this? I don't think USGS is going to show anything above 2.5. It doesn't look like we're seeing anything up here, but there's definitely a little bit of activity kicking up there. Nothing big. All right, backing out of here across the rest of the country here. Movement across New Mexico. Looks like a little bit of activity kicking up here today across northern and southern New Mexico. Some 2s and 3s. Eastern portion of the country, fairly quiet. Got one earthquake out here in the Appalachian Mountains there from Looks like earlier this evening, a 2.6, a very shallow earthquake. Again, still kind of watching the North American plate here. We've seen a little bit of elevated movement across this area of the North American plate recently, with movement in the Gulf of Mexico, areas around the Cuba area and the Puerto Rico Trench as well, all showing a little bit of heightened earthquake activity across this region. One earthquake here in the Cuba area, well, it says Bahamas, but very close to the Cuba area. 4.2 near Duncantown, Bahamas. I've never been out there to the Bahamas. I've always heard that is the spot to go for, a cruise or a vacation. I don't know. I mean, I've never been down there. All right, further down south into the Puerto Rico area, things a little bit more minimal tonight compared to nights past. Looking at the earthquake 3D globe here, we do have a 4.1 showing up into the Middle America Trench, just off the coast here of the, looks like Guatemala maybe, or the El Salvador region. Nothing showing up yet on the USGS map. It is on the globe. Down here further south into the South America region, quite a few fours. This has been an ongoing deal of 4-pointers here. Let's go back the last 7 days or so. Notice a trend of uptick here, and this is all above 4.0 and above here across the center portion of the Peru-Chile Trench. Things are definitely kicking up there. Very active. No major movement yet, but we'll definitely continue to watch that area. The Alaska region looks like it's kind of funny. As soon as I mention that, a 1.9 comes in up here to the northern Alaska area. This has been a little odd earthquake activity up here as well near the Yukon Flats. Not a whole lot of movement up here recently, except for the last 24 hours or so. Looking at the historical data since about 1900, doesn't show too much here in terms of earthquake activity across the area. A little bit of movement up north here, away from the area we're seeing today, but that's a little bit of interesting activity taking place here. Well north of Fairbanks, northeast of Fairbanks, off of this fault system here. It looks like the Preacher Fault, Tintina Fault Zone. Continue to watch that. Rest of the Aleutian Trench here, relatively quiet. The Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, Japan Trench, not showing anything. See what we got here on the globe. Very quiet across the Western Pacific right now. Goodness. Almost like the calm before the storm, it looks like. But it's very typical here, very typical to see that teeter-totter effect in this area, with the west edge here showing lack of activity while things kind of ramp up across the eastern portion here of the Pacific Plate and adjacent plates, right? If you really think about it, though, if you look at the general trend here of the Pacific Plate, shows a northwestward GPS displacement here. That's the general direction of the plate. When things lock up here across the Western Pacific, things get very interesting here across the Eastern Pacific and adjacent plates. A lot of things take place here when things cannot go further forward over in this area. So, and I think that's the time when California should be watching when things are very quiet here across the Western Pacific. Right now, though, I mean, aside from the Cascadia, very minimal. All right, let's go down further south here into the New Guinea area. Papua New Guinea, latest earthquake of 4.8, 8 o'clock in the morning. So things are absent of earthquake activity far as recent movement goes. Not seeing a whole lot of activity further down south. We do have a little bit of movement here into the New Zealand area with a 3.6. So let's go here. Stand by for a second while I get this pulled up. I thought I had them pulled up, but maybe I didn't. New Zealand. I'm still watching this area as well. I mean, it's right in the zone of the plate dynamics. It's been out awfully quiet in terms of typical movement here. Got a 3.0 further down south near the Milford Sound area. Not really seeing anything major. There's that 3.6 here, North Island. But, you know, that's all very small microquake activity. Look at the earthquake drums here. Not really seeing anything major kicking off. A little bit of scattered earthquake activity across the region. But aside from that, no major movement going on there across New Zealand. But it's definitely noteworthy to mention all the activity that's taken place in at least around it. We did have this earthquake here, 6.3, Auckland Islands area back in late May. That's been over, well, almost a week now, with no movement here across New Zealand. Look at that. Movement all across here, across the plate boundary, even up here. Lots of it going on into the Tonga and the Kermadec Trench area and northward, but New Zealand's right here along the plate boundary where we should see some subsequent movement considering all this activity around it. So that's what's got me a little bit concerned. We'll continue to keep New Zealand there on that checklist. Further to the west, the Turkey area, obviously seeing some earthquake activity continuing. Aftershock activity, that is. Mostly 2s, and looks like there might be a 4.6 in there somewhere in the mix there. Also some activity here off the coast of Iceland. We got a 3.1. That looks like a fairly recent earthquake. But aside from that, things are very minimal across the Atlantic Ocean for now. So looking at the model here, definitely pay attention to areas around the Eastern Pacific and adjacent plates. Unless we see some major advancement here across the Western Pacific, I think we need to keep these guys on check here. Continue to watch that, right? That's the general dynamics of the plates here. All right, let's see what else we got. Checked out the trimmer. Let's check out space weather activity. Wow, looks like we're kicking up here in the last couple hours or so. Let's bring up the flare chart. Notice this little uptrend, so to speak, here across the GOES X-ray flux chart. This measures the energy here produced by the solar flares. X, M, C, and of course B and A. Of course, if we get down to A, I don't know what's going on. Maybe the sun is burning out. But for right now, we're heading into solar maximum, currently in the C flare category. And it looks as though maybe some flaring kicking off here from a sunspot that is currently facing Earth, and also one way out on the eastern limb of the sun. Those are the two brightest areas that we're looking on the UV filter ray. Looking at the magnetic structure is going to be this sunspot right here. It's fairly massive and still somewhat complex. The sunspot area over here on the eastern limb as well, fairly massive. Looks moderately complex. Can't really get a super good look at it. And also the sunspot down here on the southeastern limb of the sun. A lot of intermixing of the polarities of the fields. And that's definitely noteworthy to watch here in the coming days. So we got at least 3 regional sunspots that are worthy of watching and capable of producing some flares, with a 99% chance of a C flare, 30% chance for M flare, and X flare around 10% chance. Proton event around looks like 10%. But we're currently flaring with the global D-layer absorption map there showing up from a couple of these sunspots here. Let's see. We're not really looking at any auroras, folks. Unfortunately, things are very minimal up there at the polar regions. Unless we get, something major blasting off our way, things are going to continue that way with very minimal chances of auroras. No major coronal holes are facing us, so we're at the mercy of the sun currently. Alrighty, weather tonight, a little disappointed here in the valley, Sacramento Valley. Goodness, this is for tomorrow, actually. Oh, actually, I think this is tonight. It's been a little bit confusing. This is for tomorrow. Technically tomorrow, which is Tuesday. Current threat level right here, very minimal, but we're supposed to get some thunderstorms down here in the valley, and unfortunately it completely dried up. We had some storms popping up here across the Sierra Nevada east of me, and we watched these storms here pretty much form. Redding got hit pretty good up here, but we had a bunch of storms popping up east of Chico, and as soon as they hit the dry valley air, there's obviously a terrain drop from about 5,000-6,000 feet down to 100 feet or so, and ultimately what that does to the thunderstorms is unless you have moisture and a good flow funneling up the valley, it will squash all of these storms and instantly kill the convection, and that's what happened here. So we didn't even, I mean, we got some cloud cover, cooler temperatures. It did peak up here where I'm at to 104 degrees before the cloud cover came in, and that was due to some downsloping wind and the sinking of the air. It really got hot all of a sudden, and then within a matter of time it dropped down to about 85 degrees or so. So almost a 20-degree difference when some of this cloud cover came over. But yeah, you know, I would love for a good storm, but unfortunately we're not in the setup here in the valley, at least where I'm at, for some good thunderstorm activity. Tomorrow, it's hard to say. Well, a lot of these are not set up yet. Tomorrow, though, it looks like maybe a slight chance of thunderstorms again, but I'm not getting my hopes up. The dynamics are not set up here for any thunderstorms around my area. It's just they put it up here on the map. That's what the Storm Prediction Center does, but I don't know. We'll see. Either way, it looks like maybe wind and some hail threat here across Northern California eastward, a little bit into New Mexico, but that's about it. I know I've been hearing some complaints out here across the folks in the eastern portion of the country. Lack of rainfall. So let's look at the total accumulated precipitation amounts here all the way till about the June 13th time frame. I know the areas of the south, eastern portion of the country around this time of year are getting soaked with some rainfall, but they've been dry. So this extends all the way till about June 13th or so. This is the GFS total accumulated precipitation amount. And it looks like some of the folks out there across the eastern portion of the country are going to get some rain, but not a lot. Florida is looking very minimal here. And we are entering, of course, into the El Nino pattern, and that could spell some trouble out here for parts of the south in terms of lack of rainfall. Definitely continue to watch that. Areas that are getting some good rainfall is Texas and Oklahoma, Kansas and Nebraska as well. Colorado's just getting soaked. So that's all good news there for some of the drought-stricken areas there into the southern plains. All right, guys, I think I am going to call it a night. Yeah, just a little disappointed here in the lack of thunderstorms. It's pretty much like a giant death valley. If you really think about it, the Sacramento Valley extends here about Redding, actually south here, right around Red Bluff or Corning. Things taper off into a valley type of view. Redding still has hills and mountains, so that's where the storms continue to form up there. But about Red Bluff, Corning southward, all the way down here into the San Joaquin Valley is nothing but a giant death valley. Death Valley obviously extends here and it's below sea level, but yeah, you can pretty much count out any storms here from forming for the most part. It's a storm killer. And it's a very prominent feature here on any topography of the map. Any map that you use, it's ginormous, and it sucks for weather. But hey, occasionally we do get some storms kicking up, but just it all depends on the right conditions out here. All right, guys, have a good night. Stay safe. We're getting closer to the member drawing. 10 days. You guys got 10 days to be a member here. We're going to be picking out 2 members from our drawing, our monthly drawing here. So make sure you guys get in. Have a good night. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime. Peace out.